The distress beacon pulsed weakly against the vast darkness of space, its signal growing fainter with each passing moment. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the HMS Thunderchild, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the source of the transmission. The research vessel had gone silent shortly after broadcasting a single word: "Run." "Analysis complete, Captain," Lieutenant Kumar reported from his station, his fingers dancing across the neural interface. "The energy signatures around the research vessel match nothing in our database. Whatever hit them, it's not technology we've encountered before." Sarah's jaw tightened. The Thunderchild had been patrolling the border of human space when they picked up the distress call. They were the only ship close enough to respond, but something about this felt wrong. Research vessels didn't just vanish out here, not anymore. Not since the Perseus Accords established this region as a neutral scientific zone. Multiple contacts emerging from Fold space, Commander Jack Torres announced, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical display. "Big ones. Configuration unknown, but their drive signatures are off the charts." The bridge crew watched as 5 massive vessels materialized around the disabled research ship. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating dark voids against the star field. They moved with an unsettling precision, their formations too perfect to be guided by organic pilots. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Maya Rodriguez reported. "Text only, universal encoding." The message appeared on the main screen. "TVPART-IMEDATELI. This system is now under protectorate control." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The Thunderchild was a formidable warship, but they were clearly outgunned. Standard protocol dictated an immediate withdrawal and report to Fleet Command. But there were still life signs on that research vessel. "Send our response," Sarah ordered. "This system falls under the Perseus Accords. Any act of aggression against civilian research vessels constitutes a violation of interstellar law." The reply came instantly. "Your laws are irrelevant. A final warning." Sarah turned to her XO. "Jack, what's your read on their weapons?" Commander Torres studied the tactical data. "Their energy output suggests massive weapon systems. But," he paused, frowning, "there's something odd about their power distribution. It's too uniform, too predictable. Like they're running on preset configurations." A smile tugged at Sarah's lips. She'd seen this before. Advanced civilizations that relied too heavily on automation, on perfect systems that never had to adapt. They always underestimated human unpredictability. "Maya, send to engineering. Prepare for Ghost Protocol." Sarah's voice was steady as she gave the order that would either save the research vessel or doom them all. "Mr. Kumar, plot a micro-jump. I want us right between those ships and our people." The bridge crew tensed. Ghost Protocol was technically classified as an emergency system test, not a combat maneuver. Using it in battle wasn't exactly by the book. But then again, humanity hadn't gotten this far in space by following anyone else's rulebook. "Ready on your mark, Captain," Kumar reported. Sarah took a deep breath. "Let's show them why they should have studied their history. Humans don't abandon our own." "Execute." The Thunderchild's engines flared to life, but instead of the expected energy signature of a military vessel, they broadcast the chaotic patterns of a ship with multiple critical systems failures. To the alien sensors, the human warship would appear to be falling apart as it made its desperate jump. It was an old trick, one that dated back to Earth's maritime battles. Sometimes, the best way to win wasn't to be stronger. It was to be smarter, to make your enemy believe they'd already won. And as the Thunderchild prepared to punch above its weight class, Sarah Chen couldn't help but think that some lessons transcended species. The human warship vanished in a flash of distorted spacetime, leaving the alien vessels to face a choice: adapt to something unexpected, or learn the hard way that humanity's greatest weapon had never been its technology. It had always been its people. The Thunderchild materialized in a burst of quantum foam, its emergence precisely calculated to place it between the research vessel and the alien fleet. But Captain Chen's gambit had only bought them seconds. Engineering reports Ghost Protocol successful, Maya announced, her hand steady despite the tension. We're broadcasting as a critically damaged vessel across all standard frequencies. The alien ships maintained their perfect formation, their dark hulls still absorbing light like cosmic predators. Their response came as a series of synchronized energy pulses, targeting scans prodding the apparently failing human warship. They're analyzing our power signature, Kumar reported, his voice tight. The Ghost Protocol is holding, but these scans are far more sophisticated than we anticipated. Sarah watched the tactical display, noting how the alien vessels moved with mechanical precision. No wasted motion, no hesitation, and no creativity. Status of the research vessel. Life support failing. Torres responded. 23 survivors. Their main systems are locked down by some kind of quantum encryption. These aren't pirates or raiders, Captain. This is military-grade tech. The alien message repeated. DPPART or be destroyed. This is your final warning. Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. The Thunderchild could probably save the research team, but not without revealing its true capabilities. And once they did that, the element of surprise would be gone forever. Mr. Kumar, how close are we to mapping their targeting patterns? The lieutenant's fingers flew across his interface. Their weapon systems operate on a predictable algorithm. Complex, but it's there. Like they've never needed to adapt their combat protocols. Because they've never faced an enemy that survived long enough to make them adapt, Torres added, understanding dawning in his eyes. Sarah nodded. Maya, send to engineering. Initiate power surge in 3 minutes. Make it look like our containment fields are failing. She turned to Torres. Jack, I want every scrap of data we have on their weapons. If they're as automated as they seem, their targeting systems will have preset responses to specific threats. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, each member understanding their role in the desperate gamble their captain was taking. The alien vessels began to move, their formation shifting to bring their main weapons to bear on the apparently crippled human ship. Power surge ready, Maya reported. Engineering standing by. Sarah leaned forward in her command chair. Here's what we know. They rely on automation. They expect compliance. And they've never encountered humanity's talent for turning weakness into strength. She smiled grimly. Time to introduce ourselves properly. The Thunderchild's failing systems suddenly surged with power, but not in the way the alien targeting systems expected. Instead of a containment breach, the human warship pulsed with carefully calibrated energy signatures that matched the aliens' own weapons, creating a feedback loop in their automated targeting systems. For a fraction of a second, the perfect formation faltered as their targeting computers tried to process the contradictory data. It was all the opening Sarah needed. Launch rescue pods, she ordered, and show them why humans still train for manual targeting. The Thunderchild's weapon systems came online, each shot precisely calculated to slip through the gaps in the aliens' temporarily confused defenses. Not enough to destroy their ships, but more than enough to prove that their supposedly inferior technology could hurt them. Message from the lead vessel, Maya announced, surprise evident in her voice. They're requesting dialogue. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the best way to start a diplomatic conversation was to prove you could hold your own in a fight. Tell them we accept, but the research team's safety is non-negotiable. As the rescue pods streaked toward the damaged research vessel, Sarah Chen reflected on humanity's long history of being underestimated. These aliens had expected compliance based on their technological superiority. Instead, they were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been its tools, but its ability to use them in ways no one else had imagined. The real question was whether this would lead to understanding or war. Either way, the Thunderchild had just changed the game, and there would be no going back to simple patrol duty after this. The negotiation chamber aboard the Thunderchild hummed with tension. Captain Chen sat across from the Protectorate's representative, a towering figure whose crystalline form caught and refracted the room's lighting in mesmerizing patterns. But it was the small device floating between them that held everyone's attention. A quantum translator necessary for communication between such drastically different species. Your tactics were unprecedented, the crystalline being stated, its thoughts rendered into human speech by the translator. No species has ever attempted to exploit our targeting systems in such a manner. Humanity has a long history of finding unexpected solutions, Sarah replied, keeping her voice neutral. The rescued research team was safe in Medical Bay, but the broader situation remained delicate. Perhaps it's time we discussed why the Protectorate is really here. The aliens' crystalline structure shifted, creating patterns that the translator interpreted as both surprise and concern. Our mandate is simple: to maintain order through superior systems. Your species' approach to space combat is dangerously unpredictable. It must be regulated. Commander Torres, standing behind Sarah's chair, failed to suppress a short laugh. The crystalline being turned all its facets toward him, creating a dazzling display of reflected light. You find this amusing, human. I find it revealing, Torres responded. Your entire civilization is built on the premise that perfect systems create perfect order. But nature itself proves that theory wrong. Adaptation requires chaos, requires imperfection. The alien's response came slower this time, as if it were processing a completely foreign concept. Our systems have maintained peace across 12 sectors for over 3,000 years. Not peace, Sarah corrected. Stagnation. Those research scientists you attacked, they were studying stellar phenomena that your perfect systems classified as impossible. Reality didn't match your models, so you tried to suppress the data. Lieutenant Kumar's voice came through Sarah's comm unit. Captain, we're detecting unusual activity from the Protectorate fleet. Their power signatures are evolving. The crystalline being's surface rippled. You must understand. For millennia, we have guided younger species toward orderly development. Our protocols are absolute. They must be absolute. But they're not, are they? Sarah leaned forward. Your ship's automated responses, your perfect formations, they're not just programming. They're a prison, one your species built for itself so long ago that you've forgotten how to break free. The translator struggled to keep up as the alien's color patterns shifted rapidly. The great understanding. When we achieved perfect unity with our systems, was it unity? Sarah pressed. Or surrender? Because we've analyzed your ship's responses. They're not just predictable, they're recursive. Your technology isn't advancing anymore. It's just repeating the same patterns, over and over. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Multiple fold space ruptures detected. Kumar's voice was urgent. New vessels emerging. Configurations matched neither human nor Protectorate design. The crystalline being's surface became almost transparent. Impossible. This sector is restricted to all other species. Sarah's comm unit crackled again, this time with Maya's voice. Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the new arrivals. They're calling themselves the Liberation Front. Former Protectorate subjects who've been watching, waiting for someone to prove the system isn't infallible. Understanding dawned in Sarah's mind. Their encounter with the research vessel hadn't just been about enforcing order. It had been about hiding evidence that the Protectorate's perfect system was breaking down, and humanity's successful resistance had just triggered something much bigger. Your perfect system has a fatal flaw, Sarah told the crystalline being. It can only recognize patterns it's seen before, but life, real life, is about creating new patterns. That's what your ancestors understood before they locked themselves into their automated paradise. The aliens' response was interrupted by another alarm. The Liberation Front ships were moving into attack positions, but not in the precise, predictable formations of the Protectorate. Their movements were organic, irregular, alive. You have a choice. Sarah said, rising from her chair. You can stick to your protocols and watch your perfect system tear itself apart, or you can remember how to adapt, how to evolve. She gestured toward the tactical display, showing the chaotic scene unfolding in space. Because right now, you're about to face something your systems have never encountered. Species fighting for their freedom to be imperfect. The crystalline being's surface rippled one final time before it spoke. Perhaps there are patterns we have forgotten to see. The space around the Thunderchild had become a quantum battlefield. Liberation front ships darted between the larger protectorate vessels, their movements deliberately chaotic, exploiting the rigid targeting systems that had once kept them subjugated. But it was the silence from the protectorate command ships that worried Sarah most. They're adapting, Torres observed, watching the tactical display. The protectorate's perfect formations were beginning to shift, showing the first signs of organic strategy in possibly thousands of years. Maybe we showed them too much. Multiple fold space signatures detected, Kumar reported. Much larger than anything we've seen yet. Captain, I think we just got the Protectorate's real attention. The new arrivals tore into normal space like leviathans, breaching the surface of an cosmic ocean. These weren't the sleek, standardized vessels of the regular Protectorate fleet. These ships were ancient, their hulls bearing the marks of technologies that had been old when humanity was still learning to make fire. Those are the architect vessels. The crystalline being announced, its surface pulsing with patterns the translator couldn't interpret. They haven't been awakened since the Great Understanding. Sarah watched as the massive ships moved with an unsettling grace that defied their size. Your ancestors' warships. From before you surrendered your evolution to automation. Not surrendered, the alien corrected, its crystal structure resonating with new frequencies. We sought perfection. The Great Understanding was meant to free us from chaos, from the pain of uncertainty. These vessels, they are remnants of our imperfect past. The tactical display suddenly flickered as one of the architect ships broadcast a message that overrode all communication systems. The translator struggled to convert it, but the meaning was clear. Divergncdtected. Initiating QRACTIONAL protocols. By all the stars, the crystalline being's surface became almost transparent. They're going to reset everything. Not just the Liberation Front. All of us. Return us to base parameters. Erase all deviations from the approved patterns. Sarah's mind raced. The architect ships weren't just weapons. They were fail-safes, designed to enforce conformity on a galactic scale. That's why you've been suppressing anomalies like the research station's discoveries. You knew what would happen if too many patterns started changing at once. Lieutenant Kumar's voice cut through the growing tension. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy builds in the architect vessels. Whatever they're planning, it's starting now. The Liberation front ships began to scatter, their previously coordinated attacks dissolving into panic as the ancient warships moved to surround them. But Sarah noticed something else. The regular Protectorate vessels were also retreating, their perfect formations breaking down completely. They're not just targeting the rebels, Torres realized. Those ships are going to reset their own people too. Wipe out any trace of independent thought that's developed since we showed them their systems could be beaten. The crystalline being's voice carried a new emotion that the translator tagged as desperation. You don't understand. The Great Understanding must be preserved, without perfect order. Order evolves. Sarah interrupted. Life evolves. That's the pattern your ancestors understood. The one pattern your perfect system couldn't recognize because it never repeats exactly the same way twice. She turned to her crew. Maya, broadcast on all frequencies, tell the Liberation front ships to fall back behind us. Kumar, I need everything we have on those architect vessels' energy signatures. And Jack, she met her Exo's eyes. Prepare to show them humanity's real gift to the galaxy. What gift is that? The crystalline being asked. Sarah's response was cut off as the architect ships began their attack, their weapons operating on principles that made the laws of physics more suggestion than rule. But as chaos erupted around them, she allowed herself a small smile, the gift of starting over, of learning to embrace imperfection again. She activated the ship-wide comm. All hands, prepare for Ghost Protocol Alpha. Let's remind these ancient machines why evolution favored messy, unpredictable life over perfect, unchanging patterns. The Thunderchild's engines flared to life, but this time they weren't broadcasting false failure signals. Instead, they began generating interference patterns that mimicked the quantum foam of space itself, turning the human warship into a ghost that even the most ancient targeting systems couldn't quite grasp. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't meant to be. And that was exactly why it might work. The void between stars became a canvas of chaos as the Thunderchild danced between the Architect vessels' reality-warping weapons. Each blast from the ancient ships left geometric patterns of perfect order in spacetime itself, patterns that would have reset all matter and energy within their reach back to predetermined states. Ghost Protocol holding at 60%, Kumar reported, his fingers flying across neural interfaces that were barely keeping up with the demands being placed on them. But we're seeing bleed-through from their quantum reversion fields. Sarah watched as sections of her ship flickered between states of existence, the Architect's weapons trying to force the Thunderchild back into patterns their systems could recognize and control. But humanity had long since learned that the best defense wasn't perfect shields. It was refusing to be where your enemy's weapons expected you. Multiple Liberation Front vessels reporting successful implementation of our quantum scatter protocols. Maya announced, pride evident in her voice. The smaller ships were adopting modified versions of the Thunderchild's ghost protocols, becoming increasingly difficult for the Architect's targeting systems to lock onto. The crystalline being watched the tactical display with all its facets. Impossible. The patterns. They're learning, evolving, even as the Architects attempt to reset them. That's the thing about evolution, Torres said, his eyes fixed on the battle unfolding around them. It's not about achieving perfection. It's about becoming better adapted to survive. The Architect vessels moved with devastating grace, their ancient weapons cutting swaths of perfect order through space. But for every ship they managed to reset, 2 more learned from the experience, their patterns becoming even more chaotic and harder to predict. We're picking up new signatures, Kumar called out. The regular Protectorate fleet, they're powering back up. But these readings, they're breaking from standard protocols. Sarah allowed herself a tight smile. They've seen it's possible. That's all some minds need. Proof that change isn't just possible, it's necessary. The tactical display erupted with new energy signatures as Protectorate ships began moving in formations that would have been considered heretical just hours before. Their weapons still fired with incredible precision, but now that precision was guided by creativity rather than rigid protocols. The Architects are adjusting their attack patterns, Torres reported. They're targeting their own fleet now, trying to force them back into compliance. The crystalline being's surface rippled with patterns of distress. You don't understand what you've done. The great understanding was meant to be eternal, perfect, unchanging. Nothing eternal can be alive, Sarah responded, watching as more and more ships broke free from predetermined patterns. Life is change. Evolution is change. Your ancestors knew this. It's why they built ships capable of forcing reset protocols. They knew that someday life would remember how to evolve. The space around them churned with quantum fire as ships from 3 different factions, Liberation Front, Protectorate, and Human, moved in an increasingly complex dance of survival and adaptation. The Architect vessels' attempts to impose order became more desperate, their ancient weapons carving patterns of perfection that shattered almost as quickly as they formed. Captain, Maya's voice carried a note of awe. The crystalline ships, they're beginning to show signs of internal reorganization. Their very structure is changing. Sarah turned to their alien guest, whose crystalline form was indeed shifting, developing new facets and patterns that the translator struggled to interpret. Your people are remembering too, aren't they? That perfection isn't an end state. It's a process of constant improvement. The being's response came in frequencies that made the translator spark. I am remembering. Before the great understanding, when we sought not to eliminate chaos, but to dance with it, to learn from it, the architect vessels suddenly ceased fire, their ancient weapons falling silent as they confronted something their perfect systems had never been programmed to handle. Evolution itself, happening right before them, across an entire sector of space. They can't reset us all, Torres realized. Not when the patterns keep changing faster than they can impose their templates. Sarah nodded, watching as the quantum battlefield slowly stabilized. The Liberation front ships moved to defensive positions, while the transformed Protectorate fleet began to form new organic patterns that combined precision with creativity. And at the center of it all, the architect vessels hung in space like ancient monuments to a philosophy that had finally met its match in the messy, imperfect, ever-evolving nature of life itself. Your civilization didn't make a mistake seeking perfection, she told the crystalline being, whose form continued to develop new complexities. The mistake was thinking perfection meant an end to change. What humanity learned long ago was that true perfection is the ability to keep growing, keep adapting, keep surprising even yourself. As the stars shone on a sector forever changed by humanity's gift for turning chaos into opportunity, the quantum translator began picking up new signals. Across hundreds of systems, species that had lived under the Protectorate's perfect order were awakening to the possibility of imperfect freedom. And in that awakening, they were discovering what humanity had known all along. The most beautiful patterns were the ones that could never be predicted.